start that again, bruh. I found myself an obstacle. Found an obstacle to overcome. It's an obstacle, of course. It's an obstacle of sorts. I found myself an obstacle to overcome. An obstacle that's in my way now. It's an obstacle, of course. You know, I think we're going to take it to like a whole new level. The whole unorthodox and untraditional phrase that I say, because sometimes you know, and then others, you know, there's different times in life. There's different time zones as well across the earth. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 151, and it really is. The last one I said, we're calling it 151, right, while I was recording / filming it. Yeah, because In the Image Clothing Company Podcast is available in video plus audio, as well as just audio only. But no, this is actually 151. That one was actually 150. Okay, the last one before this, which would make sense in order, you know, of numbers from 0 to where we are now. So here's the thing. This is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is Little Red the guitar. My Johnson JG610R, 3/4 size with nylon strings. I'm Evan Strong, and I do crazy things with nylon strings. I go off the top, usually with music. It's very rare for me to write things, at least as of this time. I've written things, you know, sometimes I do, but... yeah, so we're going to get into it. This episode is actually titled, And I'm the Evil One. Okay, episode 151, truly, of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, okay? Now, I'll talk about it, okay? There's 4 sides to In the Image Clothing Company, and each of the other 3 are intentional, as this one is as well. So we'll talk about them, at least, you know, briefly, maybe a little more than briefly. I'll talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll get into the discussion as we do. As I lay out these episodes, that's how that happens, okay? So there's the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, where really what we do is allow, keyword, the human body to work. You can actually never train the human being, but what we do to it is place clothing on it. And there's a center line to the body, the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, our jaw, okay? The jaw naturally stabilizes the whole body. On Earth's gravity, we have 2 feet that oppose the center line of the body and grip inward with arches to keep us vertical. And in between there is a center line. There just is. There's no belief, no opinion, no yoga class, right? Like I've said in the past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, I've said those things as well. But our clothing has to stay centered, fit correct, we'll all discuss here in a minute, and be made from 100% natural materials, because our bodies are made of 100% natural materials, and so the clothing we place on us has to be as well, because materials in themselves can damage the body by seeping into the body through the pores in our skin, which is where sweat comes out, right? Perspiration. And unnatural materials usually bring stretch with them as well. Stretch goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work. Muscles only contract, okay? Even when you're pushing, it's muscles contracting that actually cause you to push away from you mechanically, okay? The human body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, aka Earth. The planet that we're all on, and we're all the same thing. We're all human beings, okay? But we discuss eating, sleeping, standing, breathing. Whoa, as I say that, right, I choke up. Wow, yeah. Walking, hydration. We really do. We get into depth with all these things in the ways that we do, and we will continually get more into depth with things as we go. Yeah, I mean, we're in this for life. So I talk about a lot of good things, and we as a company do, that apply to everybody because we're all just the same, truly. Now, we have another fourth of us in the Image Clothing Company music, and what I do mostly is show the sizing and setup of the guitar. I do a lot more than that, though, because I do make music and place it there. I sing, have Metronome Madness, which is a series where we're on episode 11, actually, as of today. I filmed that. And I go off the top with wordplay, lyricism, and no metronome, so it's just kind of, unstructured, which is great. Now, there's another fourth of us in the Image Clothing Company, poodles. The big thing within the Image Clothing Company music, though, is we can't alter the hands. The hands are essentially the shoulders, as the feet are essentially the hips. The human body just only can ever work activated as a whole. Anywhere any of it goes, all of it comes. There's a role for everything to play, and it has to, because that's why it's there, okay? Yeah. The feet are the hips, the hands are the shoulders, the body's all one. The jaw stabilizes it, right? Okay. I'm gonna play a little more guitar. I feel convicted about it. I don't know why, but there's something about this that's strange. I used to play something that was nuts. It was like, what did I play? Gosh darn it. Oh, I want to throw the guitar sometimes, bro. I just want to chuck it out the window. Ow, shoot, right on the kneecap, dude. All right, put a cap on it, dude. Seal it up. Tie it with a bow. Man. Anyway, I make music. I love this. I think this is going to be one of those episodes, bro. It's kind of like this the whole time, like a whole different kind of thing that you never could have expected coming from a podcast. You know, man, I'm excited. I really am. I'm truly just so excited for my life of In the Image Clothing Company as things just continue to get more what they are in a way that people can see what we're actually doing here. All right, so there you go, In the Image Clothing Company music. But In the Image Clothing Company poodles, we specialize in purebred standard poodles. We register the poodles properly under the American Kennel Club. Advocate for doing so because here's the thing, man. Giving your dog a birth certificate really helps in keeping dogs at homes, right? Keeping less dogs in shelters and more dogs out of shelters. Check that out. Letting dogs stay natural, though, is our focus and our goal. The goal for all four sides of In the Image Clothing Company is natural. And, imbalanced collars, leashes, harnesses on the dogs, alter them to their tail tip, okay, from their neck, and to the tips of all their toes as well. Dehydrated kibble, not hydrating our dogs properly because we're giving them water that we shouldn't even be drinking, right? Questionable water, holy cow. There's a lot of stuff that we do, but events in person as well, here in the Utah, here in the state of Utah, the United States of America. Poodle parade events is what we call them. We get together bringing your poodles of any size that are purebred or mixes of poodle of any size as well. And we'll do a lot in nature. I'll give information on dogs in ways that I do. We'll just hang out, hikes and walks, and maybe it's just at parks at certain times, right? Clean the creek events where we actually clean up trash and rivers. So we'll do a lot of cool things. Yeah. All right, cool. In the Image Clothing Company poodles. Man. Picture like, I've said it similar before, but a company who really does a lot to give proper information, I guess, on otherwise improperly explained things, okay? A lot of people have bad views on dogs, and for good reasons in ways, because there's a lot of terrible dog behavior out there, but it comes from the owners. Dogs have their own temperaments, but you have to take accountability as the owner of the dog, just like a parent to a child. Really. And so that's a lot of what we'll do always under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles is just really give good information on how to actually be a good owner of a dog if you're going to be one at all. Okay. So there you go. Okay, a little bit of a rundown on each of the four sides of us. Now, clothing does have to sit in the same location for everybody. Pants actually sit above our hips, okay? If your pants are on your hips, they're altering your hips. They're restricting their function. So above the hips entirely, at that natural waist, okay? Between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the hip bones, okay? Slightly higher in the front than the rear is where the waistband of our pants has to be, because that's how we keep our bodies just in their only neutral position on Earth's gravity with our core active. The core is only there to support the body always. That's why God placed it there the way that he did. It's the center of the whole body. It supports the rest of it. Always. There should never be an instant in a human being's life where its core is deactivated. I said it's for the sake of showing it's just a mechanical machine. Legitimately. There's just a neutral position to every joint of the body, and it has to reside in that. Always. Otherwise, the body is damaged. Okay? Yeah. So, we wear tops as well. The tops that we wear, the seams that are on top of our shoulders have to be behind the peak of our shoulders. Our shoulders only ever work behind our head, and they follow the shoulder seams. Mechanically, that's just where the shoulders connect, is behind the head. And then the edges of our tops, those seams should be right at the functionality of our shoulder joint. Okay, just as close to the joint as we can, because that's where the joint functions. Otherwise, it just can't. And then you've got things like stretched and pulled on upper trapezius muscles. And then you've got neck tension and inability to rotate your head. And then your jaw is altered. And then your collarbones don't have motion. And so then your pectoral muscles take over. And the muscles on your back get weak. Okay, one of those being the upper trapezius, and then all the musculature traveling down. Your body just gets so damaged. We'll say it like that, because that's the case. Check out the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. I get in depth with the anatomy of the human body and discussing how to allow it to work. Because you can't train it. It's just a machine. There's only the word allow. There's only natural. No opinion. But that's just how it is. So, two things we have as prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company. Firstly, lacing shoes. There's only one way to do it. To not alter the feet, because there's only one way the foot is shaped. And when you're just weaving a rope across the top of there, you have to shape it the way the foot's going to operate, or else it's not going to be able to operate the only way God designed it to ever be able to work. In The Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is what we title that. And then we also tie our shoes, and we have to do it evenly. We're just tying a knot. We don't really think about that. At least most of us don't. I didn't until I was about 24 years old. But we have to tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet, which is actually opposite knots, because there are two sides to the center line of the human being, the mechanical machine. And our feet just rotate inward when we walk, because our biggest toes are the farthest forward, and then our little toes are the farthest back. And so the feet actually just naturally roll in as we step. And we stand on the outside of our feet with that nice gripped arch, the neutral ankle traveling from the base of our heel up to our knee. You look at bare feet footprints, people walk in water and then walk on like concrete or something, asphalt or anything that you can see a footprint like that, even footprints in sand or dirt of bare feet. Naturally, it's just the very outside of the feet, and you're going to point your feet the direction you're walking, and the pinky toes point straight forward, actually, because of the mechanics of how the feet roll like that, because they're just shaped like that, and they have musculature that has two insertions, two bones, one on either end of the muscle, and they can only contract to work the muscles, and they're only going to be able to do that in line, because that's just how the fibers of the muscles work, and that's just how physics works. And so with all that being said, there's only one way the human body could ever work. And we show how to let that happen under In The Image Clothing Company, bro. Or sis. We're all just sons and daughters of God, by the way. Brothers and sisters in Christ. Jesus the Christ, our living God. You like the slowness of this or what? I feel like I need to be going this slow right now, so sometimes I'm ripping through words. Right now, dude, I'm not going a lot fast with my speaking. But I'm the evil one, right? We'll get into it. The second prerequisite under In The Image Clothing Company is removing all tags, okay? Anywhere a tag's placed in clothing, first of all, it's just not something that ever happened even decades ago from today's date, which is the 26th of July, 2025. But they're either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, or just not allowing musculature to activate. And it's actually an and or. Because they're causing a physical gap where they are, and then in that case, you're changing the body's muscular system's position, because really the body is about the skeletal system. But if the skeletal system moves, like I'm saying, muscles just have insertions to the bones at each end of them, and they can only track in line, and so the musculature won't be able to activate because the skeletal system's altered. And then chronic patterning and scar tissue, and welcome to In The Image Clothing Company. And really what we do, right, is get out of those things. The body should be very fluid and mobile and just able to work. And so we really give a lot of information on how to do that. We give free modifications, you don't have to purchase In The Image Clothing Company clothing, but we have it where we do, when we do. You don't have to purchase In The Image Clothing Company dog products to allow your dog to be unaltered, but we talk about those things as well, keeping collars centered for human beings and dogs, right? The dreaded collar seam modification in human being clothing, dog tags on dog collars, and just, weight discrepancies around the collars, leashes, harnesses, whatever it is placed onto a dog, right? Slip leads. I'm a fan of slip leads. We'll talk about that where we do as well under In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. I actually have, there's a video there already about slip leads. Yeah, so let's get into this, man. And I'm the Evil One. Episode 151 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I want to say it like this. You know, we kind of come full circle in life in a lot of ways with a lot of things. And it's kind of funny, kind of ironic that I'm the person sitting here behind a little, broken, outdated cell phone camera lens. You hear that emotion in my voice? On the floor of a bedroom that I don't pay rent in, the house here to be able to live inside. And I, give people information on life and kind of tell people how it is. And I do, and it's correct, right? Most of the things I say here. That's the intent, and that's the point of doing this at all. And I talk to people about things that really change their lives and help them in a big way. And at one point in my life, I was doing something that was entirely evil. And at another point I was as well. And a few other points there, the same thing was happening. And the point that I'm trying to make is through the entirety of my life, I'm the evil one. We talk about it, being sinful by nature and overcoming the natural man, because it's natural for mankind to sin and desire things and be selfish and lie and cheat to get ahead because we need things. And so if we don't think we'll get them by being behind, we'll do all that we can to, not be. And at a lot of times in my life, man, I've done things just terribly evil. And I'm not trying to say anything about and that's what I mean. That's what I'm being very clear to say, actually, is that it's not like there's going to be a time in my life where I'm going to stop being evil. Like all of a sudden I've just been so perfectly perfected that I just don't sin or do bad things anymore. That's just not the case. That's not how this life is structured and set up by God, Jesus Christ himself. And so I think, it's kind of funny to think about life. And you look back on it, if I'm looking back on mine and making an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast that we're titling And I'm the Evil One, that happens to be 151. That's a lot, dude. We're on episode 151 of this thing. We've got a lifetime of just continuing to do this. That's what I'm saying. I used to do such terrible things, man. Things I wouldn't do now, right? And I mean, yeah. I was thinking about it often. I have been. Elementary school was a big thing for me, man. Well, I grew up in a house, and I'm not trying to give some sob story, and I talk about it where I do, but I talk about it because it's important to see where I'm coming from. But I grew up with my sister being the biggest bully, and my dad being terrible to me. And I didn't have anybody else, Once my mom left when I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced, and she was just in a different house. We had to live with my dad, at least until I was a legal adult. And, I actually ended up living with him longer than that because, all the beliefs I developed while doing so. And here's the thing, that's why I'm saying there's no excuse, but all I ever knew was being bullied at home, and so I ended up treating other people the way that I got treated. And that just happens often. That's how that happens. That's really what creates bullies, is they got bullied. And so then they act out of the same behavior that was acted on to them, Yeah, man, I didn't even realize what I was doing. But elementary school, I was terrible, man, especially. I was a bully, bro. Big time. I remember there was this kid named Jacob, and I would always just call him Jack Up. Big time, in such a mean way. And you could tell the kid was already just struggling, man. And he was just trying to stay out of people's business too, and I would go after him, man. Man, I mean, there's a lot of kids. I just remember standing in the lunch line, to get lunch in elementary school. I just stomp on people's feet all the time. You know, people would have like nice shoes and I didn't. I literally had duct tape on my shoes. Yeah. Because I remember, it's Utah. We get snowy winters, man. And I had holes in my shoes and I would just duct tape them up. Same with my pants, bro. I wore jeans to school with holes in my knees and I'd put duct tape on them. And I remember that feeling of the adhesive, the duct tape on my knees. I didn't like it. But I had holes in my pants, But then people had some nice clothing, and I'd be stepping on their shoes because I was jealous. I didn't know I was jealous at the time, but I was. So we'd be waiting there for some kind of like cardboard pizza. And I'd just be stomping on people's feet, Just doing intentional stuff all the time, bro, to be so mean to people. I was such a bully. I got in so many fights in elementary school, physical fights. But it's funny because I would never want to like actually punch somebody, because I felt like a punch was like stepping too far. But I would just like wrestle people to the ground and throw them around. And I didn't realize I was starting the fights, Like it kind of didn't even occur to me that I was the one starting these fights. But I would just go up to people and I would just, I thought I had this like signature move thing where like you're standing in front of somebody and you like step one with your, let's say you step to the right of them and you come up in front of them and to the, like right on the side of them now, on the right side, and you put your left leg behind their left leg, because they're kind of like facing you. You face in opposite directions, and then I just like throw them over my leg and like trip them backward. I would just do that so often. And I just wrestle people because then they'd like get after me, like, what are you doing? And they'd try to like just kind of have me stop. And then all of a sudden I thought they were starting the fight. No, it was me. I just didn't even realize what I was doing. And I just wrestle these kids and just like, just like out in the grass field, at school, at recess, just throw them down. And we had like these little wood shavings in the playground area, like this little like concrete curb ledge around it to hold the little like wood chip stuff in there underneath the playground, I'd just be wrestling kids around in there. I remember like, yeah, I mean, you get hurt falling on that, I remember people getting a little bit bloodied up because they fall on these little pieces of wood and it just pokes into their skin. It's my fault. I didn't even realize what I was doing. I remember one time, dude, I pulled this kid. His name was Tyson. I'm not going to say his last name because it's funny, though. I'll finish the story about that. But him and I, we used to pretend, Star Wars, the movies. This was back when there was only 6 of those movies. Now they've got all, the ones that have come out after that, and quite a few have. And the series as well, in addition to the movies, there's like TV shows, but we used to like pretend we were, fighting with lightsabers, at recess and just kind of have a good time. And I remember one day he was on the monkey bars just hanging there. And I grabbed his shorts and I just pulled him down. I pulled his underwear down with him. So now the kid, from the bottom of his shirt tail to his shoes, where his pants and underwear was resting on the top of his shoes, he was naked, hanging on the monkey bars. I was a bully, dude, in elementary school. The reason I mentioned that he was my friend before that is because, like, I was doing it to embarrass him, and I was doing it to be kind of, like, mean at that point, even though he was my friend. But this is the thing, this is what I would do, I'd make friends with the bullies because I knew how to be around people like that, like I'm saying, at home, all I had was bullies. I'm not complaining about it, but it is the case. Truly, actually, legitimately. It's just how it was. I had nobody else around besides people who bullied me. In my house is what I mean, And so at school, I'd make friends with the bullies because I knew how to deal with those kind of people, I just knew how to deal with people who were mean to me, and I wasn't really around people all that often who were nice to me, so I didn't know how to act in those kind of situations. And so I'd go up to the bullies, and I'd try to, like, be friends with them. But then these are people who are not acting in such good ways, And so then adopt their behavior on top of what I was already doing and what I had already seen other people do to me, you know. There's that phrase, like attracts like, you know. I didn't realize what I was like, bro. I didn't realize it. You know, I've talked about it. I didn't realize I had any kind of like pride until recently, like the past couple years. Now I'm a very, very, very prideful person. I'm aware. I don't know, it's funny. I just thinking back to like junior high school, you know, just swearing all the time. All the time. Just saying terrible, perverted, disgusting things in the hallways with my friends. Not even just at school, but then, you know, it would get transferred to, well, just through all my life, you know, but you'd hear it at school and you'd see it. I don't know. A lot of times, you know, you feel so silenced. Authenticity is a scary thing, but, you know, expression in a way that you're kind of playing a character of this tough kid. I thought I was like some thug, you know, because junior high, and then, you know, from then on for a few years there, at least, you know, most of junior high, I guess we'll say, is, you know, yeah, high school changed a lot, but I thought I was like a gangster, man. I thought I was like a thug. You know, I wear big old baggy jeans and sag them low. I had big old shoes. There's the brands Osiris and DC, you know, and I had those type of shoes. And, you know, I had like this flippy, long-ish hair, and you know, wearing hoodies all the time, hanging out with the wrong kids, you know. I didn't do any drugs ever, but I hung out with a lot of kids that did drugs, you know, and I hung out with kids that were just so terrible with the things they'd say, and then I was one of those kids that was so terrible with the things that I'd say. I mean, because I think I look back on it now, and I think about the things that would come out of my mouth, and I can't even believe it. I mean, like, it was terrible. I don't just mean like a time or two I said something that maybe wasn't the best. I mean, I was filthy mouthed, saying terrible, terrible, terrible things. But, you know, it felt kind of liberating, you know, to be around people doing some pretty terrible behavior, because I was always told exactly who to be. And so then when you're doing stuff that you know you shouldn't be doing, it kind of makes you feel free. You know, and that's why I talk about freedom's not the goal, because freedom leads us straight to hell. True, actual freedom. You know. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Freedom. I went into it pretty deeply. But yeah, dude, I mean, I was bullied through junior high as well, you know, and man, you know, skateboarding, longboarding all over the place. I mean, I was that kind of kid, you know. I mean, it's funny. The thing about stereotypes is that they're real. You know, people say, like, don't stereotype. But the only way you can stereotype things is if there's a category that things fit into. And there is. It's like how I talk about a mutt is a mutt, when, like, for dogs. Well, it's just because there's a reason for a purebred dog. Otherwise, there wouldn't even be breeds of dog, right? And so, I mean, yeah, it's very stereotypical to label like a skater kind of kid as like this, you know, kind of rough, disrespectful kid, but that's how they usually are. And I'm speaking out of experience because that's how I was. I just didn't realize who I was being. And it wasn't me that I was being, but I was trying to be something, right? I was lost. And I was damaging other people's lives because of it. Big time. You know, I'd bully my best friends and not even know it. Anyway, got into high school though, you know, and all of a sudden I started wearing a peace sign around my neck, you know. I think I got a wake-up call in a lot of ways. in high school is when my dad got remarried. I got a call. I hadn't seen my dad in a few days because I actually was living in the same house that we had lived in since I was born. And my dad had moved up in with his girlfriend in the house that I eventually ended up moving into as well. And, at least he was usually up there, for days at a time, weeks, maybe even, for part of that time there through like the transition. I got a call from Disneyland from my dad. I was over at my friend's house and I hadn't seen my dad in a few days. And he says, "Hey, what's up?" And he tells me he just got married. I get a call from Disneyland. I didn't know my dad was in Disneyland. I was 16 years old. Still living with him, kind of. Again, in the house that he wasn't like really in all that often. Yeah. I don't know. I got a big wake up call at that time period in my life for a lot of reasons. That's a big reason. There's a few months there where I was living alone in that house. My dad was just up there, at her house. And, that's when I first went on mental health medication. And then I was on that for 6 years, man, because my life was just rough, dude. No complaint, no kind of like sob story like I like to say, because I don't expect anybody to feel bad or change their opinion on me or anything, or like be softer or easier on me because of it. But no, my life was just rough. It's always been rough. Like, very, very rough. In many, 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 many different ways. Compounding on each other. It's been hard, truly. But for a lot of my life, what that did is cause me to act in ways that was just terrible to other people, I didn't know how to deal with anything, and I didn't have anybody who really showed that they cared about me or was there for me. And so, I just kind of acted out and did what my dad would do to me, put my frustrations out on other people. That's not cool. There's no excuse to that. Regardless, because that is the case, that's just what I saw at home and that's what I experienced. But that doesn't give me the right to do it. Even if I was ignorant to there being like another way to doing it, venting your frustrations, for example, Nah, man, I've done a lot of terribly evil stuff, man, to people intentionally, like to hurt people. Yeah, terrible, terrible stuff. Yeah. But yeah, big wake-up call, just in so many ways. When I was in high school, I kind of became like a hippie, even though hippies were decades ago basically. I mean, it would have been, 20 teens when I was in high school. I graduated in 2017, and then, 3 years before that was the 3 years of high school, right? Those 3 years right before 2017, so. I don't know, though. I felt like a hippie, man. I just, I was just trying to, trying to love people for once, when I realized that I didn't really have it around me. I didn't, truly. I mean, my friends, I had this one friend in particular, and his family, his mom did so much for me. He did so much for me. Was his dad as well. The whole family. He had siblings as well. I mean, the whole family was like my family. And I had, extended family in ways, and my mom in ways that did some pretty great things for me. I mean, but in my immediate situation, I was just, man, pushed out. I was thinking about this past few days where I'm kind of just used to being rejected from my family. And a lot of times when people accept me or what I'm doing or who I am, I don't like it because I'm not used to it. And I talk about how we play roles as human beings, but a lot of times what we do is play out roles that we were never meant to play. Meaning, roles that really aren't authentic to us, that we're not supposed to be playing for the long run. There's no accidents. God has his perfect plans for all of us. But that's the thing, is that's part of our plan is, being able to see who we really are and stop acting out of these roles that aren't authentic to us. And, I kind of adopted this belief, right? And I say I don't believe in anything because I don't, but I definitely did. Where I thought, it was normal to have your family reject you. And when I say that, it's like speaking for myself, normal to be the outcast, normal to always be told I was wrong, I thought that's where I belonged, is being so, rejected. Because that's how it was in my house, growing up. Truly. That's just how it was. So, a lot of times I would do things to people to cause them to reject me. Because if people showed they cared about me or loved me, I'd be like, no, this is wrong. This is not cool. Nope, there's some kind of hidden meaning. You're gonna twist it up on me out of some, like place I couldn't expect. All of a sudden, I start to trust you, and the next thing you know, you're two-faced. Because that's again what I was used to at home. And so I wouldn't trust people who showed that they loved me or cared about me. But I felt like I knew how to navigate an environment where people didn't like me and where people were against me and people, rejected me and outcasted me and talked bad about me and down on me. And so what I would do is I would bully people because then they would treat me in ways where I felt that I belonged by being rejected. That's what I was used to. So that's what I knew how to navigate, is being the problem, being the scapegoat, being the person that people could place their blame on. What that actually led to a lot is at jobs, I would tell people to place the blame on me. That's kind of different than this episode's title, but I would, when I was a supervisor or a manager at jobs or a team lead, whatever it came to being at whatever job it was, I would tell someone to do something that the boss wouldn't have said to do. And I'd be like, well, just, tell them I told you to do it. Well, I guess it is kind of the same as what I'm saying for, in this episode. Because I was just so used to people getting after me for things, I was so used to being the one that was causing the problems, really, right? I mean, yeah, that's essentially the same thing. And I'm the evil one. I was used to being the bad guy. And I knew how to play the role of it. I knew how to put myself in situations and do things to the point where I was the one that was doing the wrong things. Because that's the thing, even if I'm telling the employee to tell the boss to blame what they did on me, because I really did tell them to do it, really what I'm doing is sabotaging myself, because I'm actually doing something wrong. I'm telling them to do something that we're not supposed to be doing, And even if they're not going to be the one to, take the blame for it, I'm still the one that caused the thing to happen wrong. And you see what I'm saying? Like, I am, man. I'm the evil one. You do now. But it's kind of crazy, really, because it's funny, I get after people for being so hypocritical, but then I'm hypocritical. Right? Man. I mean, I used to try to get girls to like me. And I think I've mentioned this. I know I have under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, because I'm very smart. And I'm very understanding. I really actually am. But I would use that in like a manipulative way. And that's what I'm saying. I didn't realize I was even doing these things. But this is what I saw at home. And that's no excuse, but it's the truth. That's where it came from. That's how it came to be. And so, I'd use people, man, because I would understand what they're going through, and I would use that to like get myself into situations where like people felt seen, you know. But it not only did they feel it, I saw it. I saw what's going on, and I really, really could, you know, help them in ways, but I would use it to my advantage, you know. And however that came, I can look back on it and be like, yeah, I mean, I was just manipulative with it. And that's what I'm saying, you know, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I didn't have this conscious intent to do these evil deeds to people. But I was doing evil things. Definitely. To people, man. I mean, it damaged people in a lot of ways. Just the behaviors I've done in all the ways that I have, you know? Which is crazy. Because that's kind of the thing, you know. You know, in Scripture it says the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's cunning and manipulative and seductive, you know, and metaphorically a serpent, you know, sly and slippery. And, you know, that's what the word cunning means as well. It's like, you don't really realize it's happening until it does. That's what I mean. I, as like Evan Strong, the son of God, never had an intent to do these evil things, but I allowed Satan, the devil, to work through me. And I was open to it. Wide open to it. For a lot of my life. And like I'm saying, at times, it's just, you know, that's just how it is. It's just what happens. For the rest of my life, I'm still a human being. I'm still imperfect. I'm still sinful by nature. Because we all are. Because Adam fell so that we could be mankind and experience joy. Because there has to be both sides for one to exist. Man, dude. You know, having such a manipulative dad, I never wanted to be that. It's crazy. We become the things that we don't want to be. You know, a lot of times we get so focused on trying to avoid something that we become that thing. You know? Actually, in episode 11 of Metronome Madness that I filmed today, I talked about a similar thing like that. It was just freestyle off the top, but it came out. You know, I said something like about superstitions, you know, and a lot of people feel like they need to avoid everything, but I don't know, man. We've got to face the evil inside of us, you know? That's what I mean. That's what this title says. And I'm the evil one. It's not like titled, I used to be evil, now I'm perfect. It's, no, currently, for the whole time of my life, I am the evil one. You know, we're human beings, dude. In Noah's time, when God flooded the entire earth, it's because mankind had become nothing but continuously evil at all times. That's what it's worded as. You know, that's what it says. It's how it was. The truth, right? This is God's word. This is eternal, literal, actual God, right? God is the word. That's another name for Jesus Christ himself. And so, you know, I mean, we're just human beings and we're just going to be evil. That's what I mean is we have to recognize the evil inside ourselves. And you can't just be avoiding things, you know? Well, I talk about it like that, and that's really what it means to take accountability, is just to stop running from things, you know? And we have to realize we are evil, man. The most righteous person on the earth, even the prophet at whatever time, you know, or the bishop, or, you know, yeah, man, anybody. We're all equal human beings. I say that so often, dude. Man. And we're all equally terrible. Even the best of us. Like that phrase, it happens to the best of us, right? I just think it's crazy. I mean, I can sit here and I can really give profound, deep discussions on what truly is actually legitimately the truth of all things, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I can sit here with this real, actual, intimate, personal relationship with God himself and just talk about it and give context on who our one and only living true God, the creator of all things, actually is. And I can do that, but I'm still the same person as the person who's done the most evil that I've ever done in any time of my life, even the things that I haven't done yet, because I will continue to do evil until I die and get perfected through God. So that's what's crazy about it is, yeah, I am the evil one. I mean, that's the whole thing about having opposition in all things. You can't have good if there's no evil. It's like, the Asian depiction of the yin and yang, right? Where you've got like the koi fish, like the white one and the black one chasing after each other like this in a circle, like, right? Or whatever you want to depict it as. It's the same thing in any culture. Everybody knows it who knows the truth. There's dark and there's light. There's good and there's bad, right? And then all the opposing things. And that's within us as well. It's not like there's only good people and then there's only bad people and then there's like a separation. But within everybody, there's the devil and there's God. And that's, what it says in scripture is you can't serve two masters. You either, I actually don't know what it says, but yeah, I mean, you either love one. Yeah, I don't know how it's worded after that, but you just can't serve two masters. That's what it means, we talk about like a lukewarm Christian instead of being on fire for God. Or we talk about sitting on the fence rather than actually being all in, right? Jumping over the fence fully, entirely on the other side, if you will, where the grass needs to be watered. Because it always does. No matter where you are. Because that's the thing, right? You've got a really, 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 really good person, and there are some on this earth. They still have evil in them. We have to face that evil. We have to accept it. We have to know that we are evil. We are an enemy to God. That's what it says. The natural man is an enemy to God. And we are human beings, humans, right? Mankind, men and women. But yeah, in the image of God created he them, right? Mankind is both men and women. Adam is a man pulled from the clay, and then Eve, his wife, was actually pulled from his rib. We're just mankind. And so it doesn't matter who you are, as I say, right? Wear clothing sits for everybody. It's kind of silly, but that's why I say it like that, If you're a man or a woman, tall or short, skinny or fat, any age, any part of the earth, any time period to ever be, right? Black, white, blonde, free, Muslim, Asian, Croatian, Hindu, Jewish, African, Buddhist. I'm like mixing races and religions, right? Just to kind of say like anybody on the earth, bro. Anybody who can humble themselves enough to understand that they are evil. We're all equal is the point. I don't really know where I was before that. I guess, no, I do know. I was just saying we're all human beings. Yeah, we're all, we're all human beings. So it's like kind of not even about trying to be good. It's more about trying to recognize the evil inside of us. And then we can know who God is because we can know the opposing force of good and know how to not be that. But it's like how we're commanded to not do things You know, as disciples of Jesus Christ, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, even more so than other Christians, we've got a lot of things that we're told not to do. But here's the whole point. The reason we're told not to do these things is because how good the other end is. So if we can really understand why we don't do the things we're not supposed to, then we really understand the goodness that comes on the other end. Okay? So this is the point. If we can really, really understand how evil we actually are as human beings, just universally, our desires are evil. Because greater love hath no man than if he were to lay down his life for his brother, or his friend, or his fellow man. Yet, we're conditional beings and we need things, and so we'll kill other people so that we could survive. If resources are short, for example, we're evil, naturally, because you almost have to be to try to survive. But then there you go. He who will lay down his life for Jesus Christ's sake, our God, well, he will gain his life if he loses it for the sake of God. But he who tries to keep his life, gain his life, hold on to his life, that man will lose it. He'll lose his life. Because that's selfishness versus selflessness. And one is evil and one is good. But there has to be both, because there's opposition in all things. And so we have to realize that we're evil. It's not so good to shelter your kids. I was very sheltered as a kid. Wow, in ways, it's so weird. Ironic, in a sense, paradoxical, in a sense. It's very strange. I talk about it. Secondhand smoke, growing up, being around alcohol and crazy people in family situations, being tossed around, like I'm saying in this episode, hanging out with, kids just doing drugs and being there while they do it, and people who, are into terrible things and talking about them, movies, TV shows, music, listening to absolutely terrible music and just, basically like worshiping Satan through the music that I loved and clinged to that was terrible. So terrible. Talked about other people so terribly. Talked about very, very, very immoral things and idolized those things, right? A lot of terrible words and wordings and things being alluded to and innuendos. Terrible, terrible. This is me that I'm talking about. I craved these things. I'm not even just talking about the world and it can be evil, because the world's supposed to be evil, okay? Let them struggle. Is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. The world's supposed to be evil. It always will be. That's the point of it, is a place to struggle and to come back to God. In a lost and fallen world, right? But I'm talking about me, because I'm the evil one. I'm the one that was craving this music. I'm the one that, as silly as it might sound to some people, we're commanded as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We've got it's called the word of wisdom. Listen to me talk, dude. It's hard for me too, because it's so real. We're not only commanded to not drink alcohol because it alters your body, it alters your mental state. You do things you wouldn't otherwise do when you were in like the right state of mind or clear-headed. But even things like black tea, and stuff that alters your body to a lesser degree, okay? It gets pretty nitpicky, really, the word of wisdom in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because of the reasons I was saying about, why we're commanded to not do things is actually because of how good it is on the other end. How good it is to be entirely unaltered. The goal is natural. The key word is allowing the human body to work under In the Image Clothing Company. See what I mean? In the Image Clothing Company is named that because we're designed in the image of God. And we're trying to be godly and not alter our bodies. The only thing that we have is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast where I talked about our physical bodies. The only thing we actually have in this life. Okay? But what I was saying is kind of maybe silly to some, but it's real and it's actually deep. And deep in the sense of this, right? Where I talk about how baptism is so real into the body of Jesus Christ. And I removed my baptismal records from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for about 13 months, and then I got rebaptized, right? The second time around is the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast where I talked about it. Some people might look at baptism as kind of a silly thing, and I talk about it as explaining it as real as it is, and explaining how real it really is what I mean by that. This is kind of silly probably, but black tea is something we're commanded to not drink because it does alter your body to a little bit of a degree. And then regardless, it's just a commandment from God, and you just do it no matter what because he knows better than us anyway. God knows all, and we don't really know much of anything. Even though I'm very smart, and I say it proudly and clearly, even if it is a prideful way, it's just the case. I don't know much. In a world that, you could know all that there is, I don't really know much of anything compared to all that. The point is, we don't have to really know why we're commanded to not do things. We just got to know God. And then it hits us deeply, when we, can just understand that we're just not supposed to do stuff we're not supposed to do. But I would drink the black tea often, a couple years ago. A lot, actually, at certain times. And the reason I did it, big reason at least, the main reason I did it, that's why I did it. I did it because I thought, hey, I don't need to be listening to God. Really? I can do whatever I want. Man, I grew up in the church, of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but, I'm an adult now, I was thinking at the time, I do whatever I want. I believe in whatever I want. I'll find my own way, And so then I would start to do things intentionally like that. If we go back to the title of this episode, and I'm the evil one, because I am the evil one. And God is perfection. Which is crazy because this stuff was used in the way he needed it to, because now I can sit here and talk about it out of personal experience, like how I, took my records out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like I'm saying, and then got rebaptized. Voluntarily doing that, it was intentional by God to be able to be something I can speak on and use as a testimony builder out of my own personal experience, doing something that wasn't good, but all things work together for the good of those that serve God. And even if we're not serving him at certain times in our lives, we're commanded to not procrastinate the day of our repentance, but, sometimes it happens later than maybe we think it should have. Turning back to God, but there's no too late. So anyway, I drink this black tea all the time, And the point is, I just kind of wanted to almost teach God a lesson. I'll show you. Do whatever I want, My life wasn't in a place that I was so happy with, and a lot of that was because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to in the first place, and then I continued to do even deeper and worse things that I knew I shouldn't be doing. I'm the evil one. Evan Strong. Me. The founder of In the Image Clothing Company. I'm the evil one. It's crazy, man. Because stuff came from that, Drinking this black tea. I just noticed what came from it. I started to kind of fall apart in a lot of ways, And then, because that led to other decisions, intentionally doing things on Sunday that I knew I shouldn't, because growing up I never was allowed to, because I was just kind of a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And now I'm an adult, I was thinking, right? I can choose to do whatever I want. And yeah, you can, anybody can. But the consequences come. And I felt them, And I kind of didn't connect the dots for a while. And the worse I felt, the more it drove me to try to... Yeah. I kind of didn't connect the dots at the time. The worse that I felt doing things against God, the more that I tried to search to find something to make me feel better that wasn't God. That's crazy. So I dove into self-help stuff and philosophy, essential oils and stones, crystals, meditations, podcasts, and other religions, Yogis, man. I started wearing these prayer beads, I just started doing a lot of stuff that wasn't doing a lot for me to help at all. My life was going downhill. I started to believe in all that stuff, about like, you are the universe. All that garbage. And I didn't know what was going on because I started to feel worse. The more I tried to figure out what I could do to feel better. Looking everywhere besides Jesus Christ. The only name that can actually save anybody from anything. And he can save you from everything. Even yourself. Because I'm the evil one. Right? Our own worst enemy. An episode of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast's title. We are. By all means, we are. Sometimes the smarter you are, the less you know. That's hard. I'm very, very, very smart. Extremely intellectual. And that can eat you alive. I always thought that I was smarter than God. When I say always, I don't know. Maybe, right? Until recently when I actually kind of got to a place where I don't even know how to word this, I'm not trying to... I don't even know. That's what do you see what I'm saying? It's like I thought I was smarter than God. At least in times. I said the word always, though, and it felt right. That's a big word, though, But I guess just because we're always sinful. I think that's the point. Yeah. It's like, well, I'm pretty smart. Maybe I'll figure out a way to fix my problems, That's such an evil thing to do. That's crazy. There's no figuring out that any of us need to do or could do. God already figured it out before it ever happened. He knew everything before it ever happened. He knows it all always because he is all and always. He's eternal, which means all the times that could ever be a time. Yup. That's crazy, bro, because, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna look into this, I was looking into, like, the brain chemistry, right? And, like, childhood traumas and, emotions in a way that, like, you could understand intellectually. I was looking into, like, modalities of trying to heal myself. in any way that could happen. And the point is, it can't happen. Jesus Christ is the only and the perfect healer. I thought I was going to get to some point, because I remember on one of my social medias, because I had that I had social media at the time. I can't even speak this. It was all about me, man. I remember one time I posted on my social media account, the better it gets, the better it gets. Because I thought I was doing it. I thought I was doing something, Man, I'm getting smart with this. I'm really learning now, right? How to overcome my mind, right? I mean, oh gosh, how to transcend, right? Yeah, no. I really get it now. Everything's the universe, No, I'm the evil one. Trying to make things up. Trying to buy into people's philosophies. I was pulling people away from the church, Well, and I've said that, right? In the 13 months where I, voluntarily took my records out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, yeah, I was pulling people away from the church in ways. I mean, I wasn't out there like making that my objective, but in ways during that time, I definitely very, very, very certainly clearly did, and that was like my intention in moments and in times there is to actually try to pull people away from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm the evil one. Yeah, most certainly. Honestly, actually, truly, yes. Not like some kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not, I mean, it's clear enough. I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to over-explain it to make it clear that I'm actually saying that. Yes, I am the evil one. Me, Evan Strong. But no, I mean, yeah, that's what this whole thing is about. I'm not just trying to like say it out of some kind of like metaphoric like wordplay thing. No, I mean it. I am. And it's crazy because you think you're getting somewhere. I think that's the point, right? The self-help type stuff. You're not going to help yourself. But to a degree, something will happen, God allows us to get deceived, and he allows us to get on the wrong path. We call it agency, the ability to choose. And he's not going to take that away from us. But it's crazy. It seems so good. It's so close. That's actually a title of one of the episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. So close. It's how the devil works. It's how Satan himself works. So close, but just not quite. Not quite. It's very, very, very close to God. But we just like didn't capitalize the first letter. You see what I mean? It's that close. I mean, it's not a joke. And all of a sudden you think you're just in charge of it all and on top of it all, Yeah, I mean, thanks for teaching me religion when I was a kid, but now I'm going to choose to do whatever. I was, like basically looking down on people at times, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, man, you guys still believe in this? What are you doing? You guys haven't transcended yet, I literally was thinking those kind of thoughts. Actually. And blind to the fact that I was living in hell. And not really realizing and definitely not taking the accountability at the time that I did it to myself. But I did. I mean, this is the whole thing. I'm the evil one. Truly, literally, actually, legitimately, yes. That's what I mean. That's why I love it, confessing your sins, taking accountability, speaking bold, harsh truths. It's the only way out. The truth will set you free. I was in delusions. I was lying to myself, claiming I had the answers. Like I was saying, trying to like tell God I was smarter than him, basically. Nah, I'll figure this out. We live in a world nowadays. I got access to so much information, and I learn so quick. Like, yeah, thanks for the religion as a kid, but nah, I've got it now. Right? And this is a familiar thing to a lot of people, and you just don't realize it until you do. If you do, I mean, hopefully you do. I don't hope for things, but you need to. It seems so liberating, when you think that you can just learn more and help yourself. It's the human condition, man. That's the whole sinful by nature. It's a natural thing for us to do, but I mean, how natural are human beings really? Look at what we do to this earth that God made. We're an enemy to God, naturally. Me, Evan Strong, the evil one. We just have to recognize it. We have to accept it. We have to face it. Really, what we have to do is repent. Meaning just say sorry to God, sincerely, fully recognizing what we did and doing all that we can to turn from our ways. Yeah. And that takes a little bit of humility. And I think we'll probably, no promises, but probably do an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast on humility sometime. But really what humility is actually is just being able to be teachable. Having, as it says, a contrite heart and a broken heart and a contrite spirit, That's basically what it means to be humble, is being able to be taught that you're doing something wrong. And, being willing to change from your ways when you're a ways off from what you should be doing. I'm the evil one, man. And it comes usually in times when we don't even recognize it. We don't even realize it until maybe later. That's what's funny, right? That's the thing, is the devil, he's sneaky. He's good at what he does. Yeah. So a lot of times we have no idea. Until something like jogs our memory, we're like, man, yeah, shoot. 4 years ago, I did this crazy thing. Evil, man. That was all me. Holy cow. I didn't even realize it. But shoot, yeah, my fault. Or whatever, any time in our life. It's just how it is, bro. I'm the evil one. Because you start, preaching about selflessness and being Christ-like, and you're probably doing a pretty good job at it, let's say. I'll speak out of me, not just like hypothetical anybody, but I do, a lot of times I'll preach about something, and I'm, preaching what I practice, but then it'll come to a situation or a time where, like, desperation, it's like don't steal, shoot, telling people not to steal or whatever, just preaching commandments is the point. And all of a sudden I get to a point where I have no money, it's like, man, all of a sudden I'm thinking like, like that guy Twitch from the movie Holes, bro. Your fingers start twitching, you try to, I need something. It's in moments of desperation, when we allow the devil to work through us, because it's harder to have faith than it is to try to take things into our own hands. I do that. I try to take things into my own hands. And growing up, again, no excuses or blaming things on the way I was raised, but just this is how I was raised, is, I had to do everything for myself. And so, I never wanted to rely on anybody ever, because, it wasn't safe to. The people who I was around, it literally actually wasn't. Kind of like what I was saying more toward the beginning of this about, who I was around growing up. People I couldn't trust because they weren't trustworthy people. Nothing to do with me in those situations. And so then, doing everything for myself, now it's like, all right, cool. You get used to relying on yourself, thinking that I can do it. I got it. No, those people that you maybe try to help and they push you away, they're not trying to be all like, He-Man, meaning just like, I think that's like a cartoon or something, but like a TV show. But just meaning like they're not trying to be, or Superman, or woman, but just like they're not trying to be overly strong or anything. But, a lot of times what it is, and usually in those cases is how it was in my case, is you're just not used to it being safe to even have people help you, because there's usually some type of like hidden condition that they have if they're going to help you with something. The people like me in these cases are used to dealing with. And so then people who are sincere will push them away and try to do it on our own. But then what that creates is pridefulness. I don't even know if that's how you say that word, pridefulness. Even that in itself, it's like I'm trying to speak my words all correct because I'm so good at it, right? That's pride. That's what I mean. I know better, I can do it alone, I got the answers. No, it was always about having a better way to do it, man. Always being the first one to say something, Always taking other people's ideas. Or not listening to them because I thought I was just, the best at it. Because I'm good at things. I just am. That's what I mean. That's why it's hard to be given gifts. I'm good with words. I'm smart. I'm capable. And those are great things. But it's so hard to balance those things. If you just weren't good at anything, it'd be easier to be humble. Kind of. Unless people just try to fake it, Pretend they know everything because they feel like they don't. It's on all ends, right? That's the whole point. So, anyway, I've just treated people terrible all my life. I mean, a lot of times it's the people that do the most for me too, like I'm saying, because I don't feel so comfortable with it. So my mom, my mom does more for me than anybody else. I mean, directly at least. I mean, no doubt. She wasn't in my life for, a decade, give or take, but, wow, yeah, even more, just because of the situation that we found ourselves in here on this beautiful planet that God made us. But, I've treated my mom worse than probably just about anybody else in my life, and she's the one that's done the most for me. It's funny how that works. Yeah, it's funny. And we don't realize it, like I'm saying. I mean, it just happens. We develop these things, we can call them coping mechanisms, but like I said, roles that we play that aren't really ours to do. Not long term, they teach us things while we do it, but I, knew how to treat people terribly who treated me well. because I learned how to thrive in evil. I learned how to thrive in contention. I learned how to thrive in disagreements. You know, I never felt comfortable if a conversation went well. I try to pick it out to try to find a flaw in it, and I feel better, you know? Truly. I'd make situations, and still do, you know, very contentious because yeah, then I knew what to do. I had a lot of practice, you know, surviving. And so then what I would do is cause